So just a little bit of background on myself. So I am the Northeast Florida Program Coordinator with the Green Team Project, which in partnership with JEA and the Jacksonville Public Libraries offer the backpack kits. And as you know, you can check it out with your library card, just like a book, which is awesome and a great resource that we can offer to the community. Here. And so Green Team Project, we're all about helping individuals and businesses incorporate more environmentally sustainable habits into their everyday lifestyle and operations. And also, in case you have any children, grandchildren, nieces, nephews, neighbors next door, we do offer a free environmental curriculum. It's called Educate and Act, and by just accessing it on our website, it's specifically for grades 3 through 12 and addresses everything from energy and water to how to have green holidays. So a very cool curriculum that's free and incorporates a lot of STEM aspects as well. So learning while you're still having fun. And we're also on Facebook and Twitter. So if you're on either of those, we try to share some practical tips about how you can save some money around your home and on your utilities. So definitely check us out there as well. And I'm sure you know a lot about JEA, but an interesting fact that not a lot of people know is that in regards to water, in order to be able to turn on your faucet and have that water come out, there are 4,200 miles of water pipeline infrastructure within Jacksonville, which is pretty crazy when you think about how much, just kind of behind the scenes goes on just so you can have that water come out instantaneously. And actually, the east side of Jacksonville uses more water than the west side, so they have to pump it over to the east side. So yeah, we're gonna talk about energy and water, speed through this stuff. So an interesting tidbit in regards to energy. In 2009, so really for the water, there's 4,200 miles of pipeline, and yeah, the east side does use more, and it's crazy. Even like nationally, our water infrastructure is really old. Like even so old, like in one book that I read, that the water pipelines in DC, some of them go back to the time when like Lincoln was president, which is ridiculous. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. And part of it is just because it's this invisible infrastructure. We don't see it. So like with the roads, you can see the potholes and you can see the paint wearing. And so it's visible like, okay, these roads need to be repaired. But since we can't see the pipelines and, infrastructure, they say about our bridges and everything like that too. It's like that with our water pipelines too. A lot of them are really old. So a whole nother, I can go on and on about that, but it's crazy. That was a very surprising fact that I learned, that even back to Lincoln's time in DC. Pretty crazy. And then also in regards to energy, so this map represents the average consumption per person in Florida, well, in the U.S. And the dark orange represents more energy consumed per person, and the darker blue, less energy. So Wyoming came in number one using 950 million BTUs, or British thermal units, per person in 2009. And this does average over residential and commercial. And then Florida, we didn't do too bad. We're dark blue. We averaged about 232 million BTUs per person. But we also did have a population of 18 million, whereas Wyoming maybe had like maybe 5 million. And the national average was 308 million. But those are some big numbers. And so I always like to break it down and kind of visualize it. So for our 232 million BTUs, if you were to take one BTU, it'd basically just be a wooden match. So if you're going to light your favorite candle or start a fire in the fireplace once these temperatures finally cool down, one BTU would be like a wooden match. And then we always talk about barrels of oil, and 1 barrel of oil is about 42 US gallons, and that is 5.8 million BTUs. So one Floridian in 2009 used about 40 barrels of oil. And that's still a pretty big number. So these barrels of oil, these barrels are pretty big. They're about waist high and 42 gallons. So whenever I think about gallons, I think about milk gallons. So to get a visual, 40 barrels of oil per Floridian would equal about 1,700 gallons. And some elementary school students had some great teachers who wanted to make reading fun. And they created these milk jug igloos. And so to create one, which had a diameter of about 7 to 8 feet and could easily fit about 10 children inside, it took 428 milk jugs. And so they would have to make 4 igloos out of 428 milk jugs to equal about the number of gallons of oil that each Floridian used. Hello, welcome. Is Miss Sparks joining us? Hello, great. Well, we are just getting started, so you haven't missed much at all. Do you happen to have a microphone? And it's totally fine if you don't. Hello.
Saying hello.
Hi. Oh, there we go. Can hear you loud and clear. Welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, I didn't realize you can hear me. Thank you.
Yeah. No, thanks for joining us. We also have the chat going as well, so that's easier. A way to communicate that works as well. So we are just talking a little bit about energy efficiency. And Amy is on with us, and she's really interested in water. Is there any particular area or topic that you're specifically interested in?
No, ma'am. Just I'm trying to learn how to be more energy efficient, and I'm starting the whole recycle thing and how I can be better at doing that also.
Okay, great. And what area of Jacksonville do you live in?
I live in Jacksonville Beach.
Oh, nice. Okay, very nice. So you're over there by the Beaches Library. And do you happen to have a library card as well?
Yes.
Great. Okay, perfect. Well, definitely if you have any questions as we go along, feel free to ask. And, if there's something that you're more interested in, let me know and we'll kind of dive deeper into that and just make it tailored to what you two are most interested in.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. So we're just talking about energy efficiency and how much energy each Floridian in 2009 used. And so for 40 barrels of oil, that was about 1,700 gallons. And so if we were to look at a milk jug igloo, that would be about 4 of these igloos, which would easily take up 2 classrooms or like a 2-car garage if you had to stack them all. So that's a lot of milk, a lot of oil that Floridians used. So we like our energy. And what this means is that basically if we can understand better how we use our energy and our water, that can have a good benefit on our wallet and on the environment. So, shameless plug. I'll be spotlighting the Home Energy and Water Evaluation Kit, which is available free for checkout from any library in Jacksonville. You do need to return it to the library that you check it out from, so it's best to check it out from your closest branch. But they're there 24/7 behind the circulation desk, and you check it out with your library card, and you get it for 3 weeks. And there's a little bit of an inventorying process just to make sure everything's there. And they'll do that when you check it out and when you return it. And it includes all the tools here and instructions to basically do your own home energy and water audit to find out where your home might be costing you some on your utilities. So that is available at any branch, anytime, and you just need your library card. So in order to really, figure out how much you can save, you have to figure out how much you're using. So I like this pie chart here because it is specifically for North Florida, and it shows that heating, cooling, and then heating our water represent a little bit over half of our energy bill. So we are definitely going to pay some attention to that. So I'm sure both of you are well aware of JEA. And do either of you have a JEA online account where you can go in and check your usage and whatnot like that? Yes? Great.
Yes, I do.
Perfect. This is a great way to be able to go in and see on like a daily basis how much energy you're using. It's almost scary. You can see how your day, when you wake up, then when you leave, and then when you come back home, and you see the kind of the spikes in your usage, and you're like, wow, somebody was watching me. They could figure out my day. But it also helps you realize when you're using more and when you're using less. So yeah, you just log in here, and then you want to look for a blue button that'll say something to this effect of track my usage and lower my bill. It's slightly changed now, but essentially you're just looking for your daily usage. And they have it for both energy and water if you have both of them. And we're going to click on the electric. And it goes as far back as about 18 months if you've had JEA at this residence that long. And this bottom red line represents the base load consumption. So how much energy your home uses on a daily, monthly here basis, regardless of the weather. So things that are always plugged in, like your refrigerator and your appliances, your lights, doing laundry. So things that don't matter about the weather. So kind of that base load energy required to keep your house operating. And then this top red line, the difference between these two basically represents your energy usage for heating and cooling. So your HVAC load, your heating, ventilation, and air conditioning. And as you can see, in some peak months, it can almost represent half of your energy bill. So that can cause a lot of fluctuation in your bill. So over here in November, it was a pretty temperate, cool month. So probably had the windows open, the AC off, and definitely saw that savings on your utility bill. But then September was a scorcher and caused your energy usage to almost double. So that's why it's definitely good to be able to kind of check in on this on a daily and then monthly basis. And also we're going to address some ways to help keep that energy heating and cooling load more in control. So within the backpack kit, there's a worksheet that looks similar to this, and it basically has you go in and start calculating your base load, which is that kind of minimum energy that your house is going to use regardless of the season. And there's also a PDF version of that at jea.com/backpack that can help you kind of do some of that math quickly. So 2 options there to figure out your base load. And then you also need to figure out how much you're actually being charged. What is the rate that JEA is charging? Because I don't know about you two, but I definitely get my bill and look at this number right here. How much do I owe them this month? And then I'll go and look at the consumption sum, but like the real number that registers with me is this one. But I never really think about kind of what's that base rate that I'm being charged. So in order to find that out, you take your charges, divide that by the consumption, and that gives you the rate for your electricity, how much you're being charged per kilowatt hour, which with JEA is about 13 cents per kilowatt hour. And 13 cents, you can't buy gum for 13 cents, you can't buy candy for 13 cents, you can't buy a lot for 13 cents. But it does add up, as we can see. So we are in a very cool time for innovation in light bulbs. And at a rate of 13 cents per kilowatt hour, if you were to use 2 light bulbs, the incandescent bulb, which we'll use a 60-watt one, which is kind of the common standard one, and then the equivalent in a compact fluorescent bulb is a 14-watt. And the lifespan for light bulbs is based off of using that light bulb for 4 hours every day. So at a rate of 13 cents per kilowatt hour, using the light bulb for 1 year for 4 hours every day, the cost to operate the incandescent light bulb would be $11.56. So okay, over a year, that's not too bad. But for the equivalent CFL light bulb, it would cost $2.70. So that's a big savings just there, and that's just 2 light bulbs. And the typical home has about 50 light bulbs. So it does add up, and that's just lighting, not even your air conditioner. So it does add up, and that's also another incentive to switch to those more energy efficient light bulbs, whether it's your compact fluorescents or your LEDs. And we'll definitely be talking about those in a little bit.
Ma'am, does it matter what voltage you use or use what you have here, which is the 14 watts?
Yeah, so with the light bulb now, they are advertising them still basically as equivalent to like your standard incandescent bulb. So on the packaging, it'll say replaces a 75-watt bulb, and then in a little bit smaller font right underneath it, it'll say actually uses 14 watts.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's still, you need to check what your light fixture, what the maximum wattage that it says that you should use, and then also the light color. And we'll definitely talk about that because that's a big variable too.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So your building envelope. So in the building industry, we say, you want to have a tight building envelope. And the building envelope is essentially what separates you from the outdoors. So it's your floors, your walls, your windows, your doors, your attic, what basically defines you as being inside. And we want to keep that nice and conditioned. And so luckily, heat only moves in 3 ways. Convection, so basically through the movement of air, heat moves. Conduction through the movement of materials, and then radiation through energy waves, so like our solar energy. And so by having a tight building envelope, that helps prevent convection, or the movement of air through, or the movement of heat through air. But some houses are tighter than others. And so every house basically has some infiltration where air is coming in. And if you were to have an energy auditor come into your home, they would bring a thermal imaging camera, and it would basically allow them to see visually the differences in temperature around your home. So this picture here in the bottom right, here we go. It's a cooler day in Florida, and so most of the home you can see is this orange color. Then up here in the ceiling, you can see there's this yellow, blue, and then dark blue right there. That is representing a difference in temperature, with the starkest difference being that dark blue. So that is a way to pinpoint your trouble spot without having to address the entire area. So this would indicate to me that I need to go up in my attic and check my insulation there. I may not have insulation there, or it may have maybe been damaged, whether it's moisture or a rodent decided to make it dinner. But that allows me to pinpoint the area versus just doing a full scale. I'm just going to add insulation everywhere. So these thermal imaging cameras are really neat, but they're also really expensive. And so within the backpack kit, which is kind of more of a DIY, do-it-yourself kit, we've included these infrared thermometers. And they're basically lasers that can tell you the temperature. And so by pointing and shooting it at your ceiling and around your windows, you can be able to identify temperature differences where you might need to do some weather stripping or go up and check the insulation in that part of the attic. And if you followed the Ebola epidemic, these were the same devices they were using to check people's temperatures as they were entering an airport and getting off of a plane. And so also another tool that home energy auditors use is a blower door test, which is shown over here. And essentially what it does is it exaggerates this infiltration of air. So that way you can like really feel it and also see it. And so it does that by depressurizing the home. So it takes out this conditioned air, and that forces all the outside air to want to come rushing in to this lower pressure area. And that allows you to really feel and see, where is this air coming into my home, making my air conditioner having to work harder so that I stay comfortable. And this actually is, accounts for about 1/9 of your total energy bill, because air leaks account for up to 1/3 of all heating and cooling costs, and the heating and cooling costs count for about 1/3 of the total energy bill. So it is a sizable issue, making it worthwhile to address. So what is the DIY version of this? So essentially you can do your own blower door test. You want to make sure you close all your exterior doors and windows, and turn off all your combustion appliances like your water heater. And then any exhaust fans that you have, turn those on, even the dryer, like on a non-heat setting. And that basically helps depressurize your home. And then walking around your home, especially walls that are exterior, and seeing where either like a lit candle or an incense stick, where that flame flickers, will allow you to see where you may have some air coming into your home, especially around windows and doors. And here you can even see an outlet. Is this basically the smoke is showing where that air is coming through. And they even sell small little foam gaskets that you can put in behind that frame of the outlet to help prevent that air from coming in. But so it helps you kind of visualize, okay, where's my home leaking and this air coming in? Does that make sense? Any questions so far?
Yes, you said you can get the kit at the library and it will explain everything on how to test your house, right?
Exactly. So pretty much everything I'm covering here, there's a 1-page laminated instruction sheet that you can carry around with you as you're auditing your house. And also then there's an evaluation guide in that backpack that lists some of the areas that you should check as you're doing your building envelope inspection. So yeah, everything I
Okay,
cover here.
is there a specific time of year when you should do that? Like now it's about to be winter, like is there a specific month that I should try to do this?
So it definitely, if it's kind of more of an extreme temperature, so like if it's warmer in your house and it's really cold outside, that can help make it easier to see this, and especially like if it's windy. But you can do it anytime, and you can also do it as kind of the season changes. So doing it in your springtime and then in your fall time, or your winter and your summer, so that way you can see it in kind of the two stark seasons. But
Okay, thanks, Amy, too.
so yeah, anytime pretty much. So that way, yeah, just being able to realize when you need to do some weather stripping or caulking, and especially as we're going into winter. I know that I can always, my front door is the culprit in my house. You just put your hand at the bottom of it and you just feel that cold air coming in. But great
Okay,
question.
thanks.
So another important aspect of the home is insulation, which it's almost like having to do your taxes or read that information about your retirement plan. You know you need to do it, but you'd rather read anything else, or even in my case, I'd rather do the dishes than have to do that. But insulation is one thing where it's like, once you take care of it, it's one and done for quite a while. And so insulation there's different types and different forms. So, for example, cellulose is pretty common, and that's basically just shredded up newspaper. And then the commercials from the 90s, the Pink Panther and fiberglass. And then there's even foam insulation where basically a technician comes in and what looks like a hazmat uniform and sprays in this foam insulation. There's two common types of foam insulation, open and closed. And we'll talk a little bit about those in just a moment. And then there's different forms. So whether it's blown in or bats or rigid board. So insulation comes in many different types and forms. And so then when we're talking about, well, how do you measure insulation? How do you know how much you need? It's rated by an R value, or essentially the resistance to the conduction of heat. So how well it resists heat, basically moving through it and then into your home. And that R value is dependent on two components, basically the depth of the insulation and then the effective R value per inch of that material. And in Florida, based off of where we are, the desired R value for an attic is about an R38. Or if you want to go the distance and get that cherry on top, about an R49. But an R38 is pretty good. And in comparison, the recommended R value for a wall is an R18, just to kind of put that in perspective. But so the effective R value per inch for blown-in cellulose is about 3.7. For a fiberglass bat, about 3 to 4. And then for that foam insulation, it has quite the range, 3 to 6 per inch. And that range is due to the open cell foam insulation doesn't insulate as much as the closed cell. So if you kind of think about your bubble wrap for packaging, if it's closed, so it hasn't been popped, so your kids haven't gotten a hold of it type of a thing and popped it, that does a better job of insulating and protecting the material than the basically open cell or the popped bubbles. So the same thing with this insulation. So if you have that closed cell, it's closer to the 6 per inch for the effective R value. And so to get that R38, essentially basically kind of rule of thumb is somewhere around basically 1 foot or about 12 inches. And inside the backpack kit, there's this chart where it'll tell you the type of insulation, including the form, and then the effective R value per inch. And so that'll allow you to be able then to go up and inspect your attic and find out, well, what's my depth? And based off of the material that I do have up there, how much more do I potentially need, if any? So this chart is included in the backpack kit as well. And if your insulation is in good condition, so like for example, this fiberglass here, it looks like it's in pretty good condition, but in some areas it's not a foot. You may need even a little bit more than a foot. You can add on to existing insulation as long as it's in good condition. Whereas up here, these bats, they're not doing anything. A, there's not enough of it, and B, it's just in such poor condition that essentially all that heat from your attic is going right into your house. So this would be where you need to essentially clean it out and put in fresh. And installation is a critical part of insulation because over here, these bats over here kind of in the back corner, those look evenly laid out and not compacted, but then some over here are compacted, and so that's basically insulation that is not insulating to the maximum capacity because it's compressed. So you want it to be kind of nice and fluffy, if you will, so that way it can insulate to the maximum capability, versus when it's compressed like that, it's not able to insulate as much. And then this is just someone measuring the depth and realizing that they need some more. Does that make sense so far on insulation?
Yes.
Awesome, great. So air conditioning. So most systems in Florida, most homes have an air source heat pump, which is actually a pretty efficient system. And air conditioning is like a cool example of chemistry, basically. So your refrigerant is essentially kind of the blood of the system, and it does a really good job of absorbing a lot of heat at a very high rate. And it has a really low boiling point, which can be tweaked by adjusting the pressure. So by lowering the pressure of the system, that lowers the boiling point so much so that essentially it can boil at room temperature, which allows the system then to be able to remove the heat and moisture from our home. So the compressor is that outdoor unit with the fan, and it receives a low pressure refrigerant vapor that then it sends into a higher pressure area in the condenser, which, you know, according to the name condenser, it causes that gas then to condense into a liquid, and that heat is removed by the compressor fan. And then, so now the refrigerant is a liquid under high pressure, and it's moving then through the system closer into the home. And then right before it enters the home, there's a slight decrease in pressure, which then causes that liquid to want to evaporate into a gas. And evaporation is a cooling process. So just like when we sweat, and as that water is evaporated from our skin, it helps cool us down. Same thing with the home. So as that liquid then evaporates, it helps remove the moisture and the heat from the home that's then expelled outside. So just some quick things about air conditioning maintenance. Making sure that that compressor outside is kind of its own oasis, so that there's not trees dropping leaves into it and grass trying to crawl up along the sides. And refrigerant, you want to make sure that you have proper charge, which essentially is just making sure that it's at the right level, because as it changes states, you lose some of it. And it is recommended that you have a technician come out at least once a year to just kind of inspect it, make sure it's working at the optimum level, and they can also then refill that refrigerant too at that time. And with ductwork, if you do have that flexible ductwork, you want to make sure that you don't have any sharp 90-degree angles, because that just makes the system have to work harder to push that air through. So that is a quick 101 on your air conditioner system and how it works. And then the thermostat. I don't know about you guys, but I've definitely had some thermostat wars in my family. But the baseline temperature setting for the summer, JEA recommends to set it 78, and then in the winter at 68. And you can definitely see in the winter that as you make it warmer or make it cooler, you save or pay about 5% per degree. And so I don't know about you guys, but 78 degrees in the summer, do you not know that we live in Florida and it is hot? 78. So a couple of things. One, definitely adjusting that thermostat while you're away. So when no one's at home during the summer and the warm months, bump it up to 80, maybe even 81. And then once you get back, bump it down. So that way you can have some savings while no one's there. Animals will be fine. And then ceiling fans are great because they cool people, but they don't cool the home. So when you're in the room, turn on that ceiling fan. It can make it feel 3 to 5 degrees cooler. And then once you leave, turn it off. And then also doing that insulation and the weather stripping and making sure that you're not having this hot air come in can also help make it much more doable to have it at that 78. But sometimes it's super hot out and you need to bump it down. Do that. We want everyone to be comfortable, but this is just kind of the baseline to let you know, okay, this is where they recommend the settings. And one quick tip as we are beginning to approach winter, when you want to make it warmer, do so in small increments. So essentially by 1 degree every so often. Because if you do it really quickly and you see that red light come on or the auxiliary heat come on, that can that basically activates the heating strips, which cost almost twice as much to operate. So that will definitely cause you to see a higher energy bill in the winter months. So making sure that when you're making it warmer, do so in a few degree increments at a time. So base loads, we talked about the monthly usage and we looked at the HVAC loads, the heating ventilation loads, but then we also talked about the base loads, which is that minimum energy required that your house uses each month, which includes like your water heating and your appliances. So we're going to talk a little bit about that right now. So water heating. I am a big fan of my warm showers, but the energy you use definitely is dependent on your consumption. So the number of people in your home and your consumption habits. But one quick and easy thing to do is setting your water heater at 120 degrees Fahrenheit. That way you can still get a nice hot shower, and it doesn't affect the sanitation of like a dishwasher. But you're still getting some savings because sometimes these water heaters are set at more like 150 degrees. So that is something that is nice and easy and pretty quick to do and won't affect your shower. And then also insulating your hot water lines. So here is, most people have a hot water storage tank, and just insulating it, the in and out water lines can help keep that heat inside. And this black insulation, you can get it for maybe as much as $5 at the hardware store. It comes pre-sliced hot dog style, and it even has some glue on it, so that way it makes it nice and easy to add on to it. It's a really quick kind of home improvement project that's also pretty affordable. And then also for older hot water heater tanks, it is good to get a hot water heater blanket. Newer models have an internal one. So newer being right around about 7 years old was when they started implementing these internal blankets. So I would say check your owner's manual, see if it talks about an internal blanket. But if it's older than 7 years, I would definitely say getting the water heater blanket would be worthwhile, because again, that just helps keep that heat contained inside the tank. And then also water heaters, timers are also another great way to help keep your water heating in check as well. But then if you're the wrong way, here we go. Let's go back. But then if you happen to be in the market for a water heater, there are more efficient water heaters. So such as on-demand systems, where commonly referred to as tankless. So you don't run out of hot water. It might take a little bit of time for it to heat up and to get to that faucet, depending on where the system is located. So like if it's in the garage and your master bath is clear across the house, it might take a little while for the hot water to get there. But once it's there, you don't run out of hot water. And then also there's basically these hybrid or these heat pump water heaters, which look like your storage tank, but then they have this device on top, which is, it's pretty brilliant how it works, because basically they have these copper coils inside and it removes the heat from the surrounding air. and uses that heat then to heat the water in the storage tank versus basically having, if you have a gas or electric typical storage hot water tank, it's creating that heat, whereas this is basically using the surrounding heat and pumping that into the water. So that also is more energy efficient and can help save some costs with that as well. So lots of different options. One thing about tankless ones is definitely keep in mind your household water habits. So if you have several kids that have to, all bathe at the same time, as well as, you're washing laundry and doing the dishwasher, and you have a high demand on hot water at one time, the tankless might not be for you. It's more kind of where it's just kind of one demand at a time. But, for different people, it works well. So just one thing to keep in mind as well. Any questions so far? Okay, I'm gonna take silence as no. So one of the most popular tools in the backpack kit are these kilowatt meters. And these basically allow you to quantify how much your different appliances are costing you in these phantom loads. So basically, you'll turn off your TV, you'll turn off your laptop, but some of these devices are still pulling some energy. So particularly if they are remote control operated or have a display that tells you the time or whatnot like that, or even especially with laptops or some phone chargers where it has a big kind of wall wart, a big thing on the power cord that you plug in. Those are pulling some energy so that they can then receive the signal from the remote or power that display. And so by using these kilowatt meters, it allows you to see how much are these devices actually costing me on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. So you plug in this kilowatt meter into the wall, and then you would plug in, say, your laptop or your computer or even a power strip with multiple things plugged into that, and that'll allow you to see how much it's actually costing you to use these devices and whether it's worthwhile to go ahead and maybe get a power strip that then, at the end of the night when you're done with these devices, you just have one click, one power button to turn off, and that turns off multiple devices, so then you're not having those phantom loads. And particularly with entertainment centers, this is where you can see a big savings. I had a friend who has teenagers and they have their stereos and gaming systems and TV, and by basically plugging that all into a power strip and turning it off at night, she was able to see a $20 savings in her utility bill. So definitely adds up. So lighting. So yeah, we are in a very exciting time for lighting. Compact fluorescents came down in price. And so those have been something that now people are turning towards. And then now, even more recently, LEDs or light emitting diodes have become much more cost effective and affordable. And they use even less energy than your compact fluorescents. And so the really cool thing about compact fluorescents and LEDs, they last longer than incandescents. They use less energy to put out the same amount of light. And then with LEDs, one of the things that makes them better than the compact fluorescents is that your compact fluorescent requires a little bit of mercury to light up. And so when these do burn out, you can't just kind of toss them in the trash. You do need to basically put them in a plastic bag and take them to like a Home Depot or a Lowe's. So that way they can be properly disposed of and we're not adding a lot of mercury to our landfills. Whereas with your LEDs, once they do burn out, you can toss them. And LEDs, now that they've come down in price, they also come in many different forms. So there are three-way LEDs, there's dimmable and even recessed lights. So these do cost, they do cost more than your incandescent and somewhat a little bit more than your compact fluorescent, but they do last longer, a lot longer than your incandescent. And there's also some instant savings that JEA offers, and as of this month, actually they're just offering them on LEDs because LEDs have been found to be more efficient than your compact fluorescent. And so these instant savings are right there, a sticker right by the price tag for the different light bulbs that you may be seeing at whether it's a Sam or Costco or Walmart, Home Depots, and Target. So you don't have to do anything, just kind of look for the sticker that says something like Shop Smart Instant Buy Down by JEA. And so they've already taken off a couple of dollars for those bulbs. So trying to help cut down the cost right there before you even take it to the register. And lights now also require these basically lighting facts that kind of look like nutrition labels. So that way you can see what the light appearance is and how much energy it's using. And this is a big variable here where the light appearance or the light temperature, basically the warm light is kind of that soft 60-watt incandescent light. And whereas then the cool light, or more like a 6,000 Kelvin, is that bright daylight light that you would see in the laboratory. And so that's really what I pay attention to when I am looking for a light bulb. Like, well, okay, if I want this to be able to read by my desk, I like bright daylight. So I'm looking more for that cool light, that 6,000 kelvins. And a lot of stores have really helpful displays to help kind of guide you depending on what type of light you're looking for and what kind of light appearance and ambiance you're trying to create. And these lighting facts then are on all the lights now as well. Sound good? Oh, let's see. Awesome. Thanks so much, Amy, for joining. I hope this helped. And I'll send you a follow-up email as well because we have a quick survey. I would love to get your feedback. Thanks so much for joining, Amy. Bye. Have a good evening. Okay. And so also in regards to savings, there's a lot of great rebates out there, JEA and also desireusa.org. And I'll send a follow-up email with these links so that way you can check them out to find out what rebates are available for lighting and water heating, etc. And water. So in the back packet, we talk about energy and also water. And I know we live in Florida and we're surrounded by water, but actually less than 1% of all the water on Earth is available freshwater. A lot of fresh water is frozen in glaciers and so not accessible, but of all the available fresh water in the world, less than 1% of all the water in the world is available fresh water, and that's including the water that we use for residential use and commercial use. So it's definitely a precious commodity. And so learning to find out, well, how much are we using and making sure that we're using it well, because we actually live in a water conservation area where the water planning district said that by 2030, if things don't change, our current demand is going to exceed our current supply by about like 230 million gallons per day. And we have really good water. We have groundwater, so there's very little treatment that needs to be done before it flows out of our faucet and into our glasses. And so we have really good water now and don't have to pay a lot for it. So by conserving now, hopefully we can prolong this great water that we already have accessible to us. So water leaks are the biggest culprits. Being able to do a whole house water check. Basically, you turn off everything, including your ice machine, and make sure no one flushes the toilet while you go out and find your water meter. And you just want to see if it is the dial spinning. And a lot of the water meters look something like this. And you want to check if it's that kind of black line right there is moving at all. And if it is, maybe go in and check, make sure everything's been turned off, no one had to go to the restroom, and then come back out, and if it's spinning, then you have a leak. If not, go inside, get a nice glass of iced tea, wait about 10 to 15 minutes, and go back out and check and just make sure it hasn't moved at all, because you might have a slow leak. And if you do find that you have a leak, the big culprit tends to be the toilet bowl flapper. So going to the toilet and in the tank, the back part, lifting it up and pouring that glass of iced tea in there, and then waiting about 10 to 15 minutes. Don't flush, and then just see if some of that brown colorization has begun to kind of come up through the bowl. And if so, that means your toilet bowl flapper isn't on nice and snug. And these flappers cost anywhere between like $5 and $10 at the hardware store. There's some great YouTube videos about how to replace them. And I even had one woman who was in her 80s have her son help her replace it. And, you know, if she can do it, then, you know, anyone can do it. So that's a great way to help cut down on water leaks. And then also,
What about faucet leak?
yeah, so faucet leaks. So inside the kit, we have a basically a drip gauge. So it's a small little cylinder, and you put that under any faucet that you may think is leaking, and it'll basically put it there for about, I want to say 30 seconds, and it'll be able to then calculate based off of how much water is in there in the cylinder, how big your leak is. So how many gallons per day that's costing you. And then there's some,
Oh, okay.
so that way it'll help you quantify how big is this leak. And then there's some good, again, YouTube videos out there about how to fix a leaky faucet. And,
Okay.
and then
Thank you.
especially, yeah, no worries. Then especially if you live maybe in an older home, water fixtures efficiencies have increased or improved rather since 1994. So there's federal legislation that passed that basically for your faucets. After that, the flow had to be 2.2 gallons per minute, and like a big change was with the shower heads. So now they need to be about 2.5 gallons per minute. And so inside the backpack kit, we also include a bag that looks like this. Oops, let's go back. That looks like this, and essentially what you do is you put this bag under your kitchen faucet, turn the faucet on to the typical flow volume that you use, and hold the bag under the faucet for 5 seconds. Then you remove it, and then it'll allow you to see how many gallons per minute. So you can see like a 1.5 or 2, and that'll allow you to see, well, how much water am I using? So 1.5 gallons per minute, or is it more like 4 gallons per minute? It should be
Okay.
around that like 1.5 to 2. But if it isn't, you can get either a water restrictor, which looks like a big washer, or an aerator. And both of those basically just help restrict the water, but maintain that pressure so that way you're still getting water, but just not as much as coming through. And that'll help you see some savings on your water bill as well.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. And then also inside the kit, we include a shower coach. It looks like this. They're white instead of turquoise, and it's essentially a 5-minute timer with a suction on it, so that way you can put it on the wall in the shower. And it's a water coach, not a water cup. The typical shower is about 8 minutes, so this helps cut it down by about 3 minutes. And the idea is just to help you kind of quantify, well, how long have I been in here? Because time can go by so slowly in the shower, as you're kind of decompressing from the day or getting ready for the day. And so this just kind of helps you quantify, okay, well, how long have I been in here? And even, so whether it's, I can't cut down my shower time, but maybe even just putting a bucket in there as you're turn on the shower and it's getting warm, so that warm up water, that's good drinking water that's just basically coming out and then going straight down the drain. But putting a bucket in there, then you can use that water to water plants, put some water in the dog bowl, something like that. So that way that water isn't being completely wasted. So there's some savings there that you can use with the shower, whether it's cutting down your time or even just kind of catching that warm up water. And then with irrigation, also inside the kit, we include 2 tools that if you have a built-in irrigation system is super helpful. So if you need to adjust a sprinkler head, so maybe it is watering the sidewalk or it's not spraying as far out as you want, we include this small key. That's a sprinkler head key, so that way you don't have to use your nail or use a quarter to be able to adjust the sprinkler head, and it'll allow you to change the arc of the spray and then also the distance that it turns. So that is a very helpful small tool inside the kit. And then also you'll have 5 of these catch cans, which look like rain gauges. And these are essentially, you put them within the spray zone of a sprinkler head. And it's to check to make sure that the sprinkler head is watering consistently throughout. So making sure that this catch can here is getting as much water as the one further away from the sprinkler head. And so there's 5 in there, and that just helps to make sure that your system is watering evenly throughout. So that is it in a nutshell. That kind of walks you through doing the energy and water evaluation. Do you have any questions on anything, or is there anything maybe we didn't cover?
No, it was very informative. Because I will always have to Google, like, what temperature should I have my house set on for the summer and the winter, and I always get different, answers. So I never really got the right thing till now. I just moved here in February, so it's kind of different than living up in Maryland.
Oh, yeah. Where in Maryland are you from?
Well, I'm originally from New York, but we were living in Bowie, Maryland.
Okay, nice. Yeah. Well, welcome to Jacksonville. Hopefully, the winter will treat you well. Um,
Yeah,
it can get a little cool, but definitely not as many cool days as in Bowie, Maryland. Um,
right, exactly.
but yeah, so these backpack kits are available at any branch. You do need to return it to the one that you check it out from. Um,
Okay,
and I do have a little kind of follow up survey. This is just to help us, make sure that we're answering people's questions and helps us make sure the program is working well. And I will
okay,
put that link in the chat so that way you can, hopefully, it'll just take you there. But if you wouldn't
okay.
mind filling that out, that would be very helpful for us.
Yeah, this was very informative, especially with the light bulbs. I'm sitting here looking at my light bulbs now. I'm like, okay, I got 4 to change in this room. How many in the other rooms that I need to change out?
And so, also in the backpack kit in the evaluation guide, there's a nice. It's basically in the middle of the guide where the staple is. There's a nice investment curve. So it essentially
Mm-hmm.
is like, okay, what can I do immediately? That'll give me a payback, and then within a year and 2 to 5 years. And especially with light bulbs, like changing the ones in the rooms that you use the most. So I work from home, so changing the lights in my office, that's going to give me a big bang for my buck very quickly.
Right.
Um, and,
Okay.
and then they also say like the kitchen. So if you're in the kitchen a lot and that's kind of the hangout
Right.
place and you enjoy cooking, that would be another place where you could get a pretty quick return on your investment.
Right, that makes sense. Okay.
And
Yeah, I really appreciate it.
yeah, no, my pleasure. Thank you so much for joining. With the recessed lighting in kitchens, if you do have recessed lighting, like Costco or Sam's sometimes have pretty good deals for recessed LEDs. So
Okay.
just kind of to give you a heads up, take a look, do some shopping around. because sometimes there's some special sales or whatnot like that. But yeah, it definitely help.
Yeah, that sounds great. I appreciate it. Well, but will you send copies of the slides, or can I get them off JEA website?
Well, so all the information pretty much that I covered today is
Hmm.
in the backpack kit, the evaluation guides and whatnot like that. Um,
Oh, okay.
But I'll send a follow-up email tomorrow with some additional resource links. So like the one for Fortify and rebates for JEA, and then also that Desire USA. And there's also some other good local resources that I'll include. But if you have any questions, whether it's about doing the audit with a backpack or just in general, that's why we're here. We're here to help.
Okay.
So definitely don't hesitate to shoot me an email, give me a call. Be happy to help.
Okay. Thank you so much, Miss Lynn Black. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a
Oh,
great
Carrie
evening.
Lynn, Carrie
Oh, it's
Lynn.
all good. It's all good. Well, thank you so
All
much
right.
for joining. And again, welcome to Jacksonville.
Thank you so much. Have a good evening.
You too. Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.